Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365, a football Friday. Johnny Mac already off to Eagles practice today. So for the next half hour or so, I will be joined by Bill. I want to get your name right, Bill. Colarulo. I got that right?
Nailed it, Jody. What's going on, man?
How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, man. The season is finally here. It felt like an eternity after that holding call in Super Bowl 57, but we're here, man.
Jeez, I try to keep that out of the back of my mind, but it does come up every once in a while. Bill is a host on JAKIB Media, does a podcast, Legal Hands to Face. How do you
Legal Hands to the Face. Twitter handle is Legal Hands to Face, but the show is Legal Hands to the Face.
Oh, okay. So there is a "the" in there in one of the two. I want to make sure I get that right. How'd you come up with the name for both your Twitter handle, or your X handle, should I say, and the show?
Yeah, that's going to take a while to get used to, that X over Twitter.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet the other day, or an X the other day. Someone said, we're still calling Delaware Ave, even though it's been changed to Columbus Boulevard years ago. We're never going to stop calling Twitter.
Exactly.
But I'm an attorney, so I'm a lawyer chasing the Philly sports talk dream, Jody. So that's the Legal Hands to the Face aspect. I practiced law for about 15 years, was a trial attorney, and now I'm taking those skills. I'm seeing in the comments people are saying not to trust me, but don't trust a lawyer, people are saying. But so I'm doing the Philly sports talk now.
We love our streamers, and we thank them all for now. Before you ever get a chance to hear what Bill's got to say, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you don't like what he says, you don't have to hit it again. But hit it first for me and Johnny Mac for the first segment. If you sit here and read the stream, you'll just want to pull your hair out. And I don't have any left to pull. The very little strands I have left are not enough. So don't do that to yourself. Don't be affected by them while you and I are talking. All right. So you made the jump over from attorney to media personality, content provider here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Good time to do it, with the Eagles coming into a season where they are certainly the NFC favorite, one of the favorites to actually walk away with a championship. But I think I saw on one of your tweets, one of your posts about why the Eagles can do that where others haven't. Only 8 times in the history of the league has a team gone from Super Bowl loser back to the Super Bowl. Only 3 times have they actually won it. The Patriots did against the Rams a couple of years ago. But other than that, you got to go back 40 years to find a team that did it. Why do you think the Eagles are suitable for doing something like that this year?
Yeah, you're not kidding, man. The odds are against them for sure. And on top of all that, the hardest schedule in the league from a strength of schedule. But I think there's a few reasons why they're going to do it. Number one, great veteran leadership on this team. You look around that locker room, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce, you have Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, and let's not forget Brandon Graham. I mean, the crazy thing is, Jody, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, and Jason Kelce, if they all stay healthy this year, they're going to finish as 1, 2, and 3 with the most games played in an Eagles uniform in franchise history. All 3 of those guys. That's pretty remarkable. But I think the real reason they have a shot to do it is you just look at this NFC. What other quarterback in this NFC, now that Rodgers is gone, what other quarterback, Tom Brady's retired, who's even on a level close to Jalen Hurts? And I think when you look at the combination between quarterback and head coach, the Eagles have a real advantage over the rest of the NFC.
There is no doubt in my mind that coming into the season, Jalen Hurts is the number 1 quarterback in the NFC. And we do this all the time here on the show, and you haven't had a chance to, so we'll let you get your opinion involved too. I think it's a 2-team race. I think it's the Eagles. I think it's the 49ers, and then I think there's a drop-off. Now, there are other, and we here in Philadelphia, we look at the Dallas Cowboys in a very specific light. I like to get others' opinions on the Dallas Cowboys who don't come at it from a perspective of despise the way most people in Philadelphia do for the Dallas Cowboys. And certainly nationally, they're getting more credit and props than maybe we do here in Philadelphia. But I'm sorry, and this has nothing to do with bias or dislike or whatever. I think Cowboys are overrated. Jerry Jones said this week he thinks the Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders, and Giants better be on notice because the Dallas Cowboys are better. At certain positions, they are. They went out and upgraded their wide receiver position. They went out and got a top flight cornerback because across from Diggs was a problem last year. But they also have some issues. They lost a tight end, and I don't think they significantly replaced him. Just double checking, Bill. You're not going to try out for the Cowboys for their kicker position next week, are you? Because they still don't have a kicker. And oh, by the way, that Zach Martin guy is sitting at home. And the owner has already put it on record that, hey, I got to save my money because I got to pay my pass rushing linebacker at some point. He's going to get the big bucks, Micah Parsons. So that's good. Really alienate one of the best offensive linemen in football. I don't think the Cowboys are as big a threat as other people do nationally to the Eagles. I think it's Eagles or 49ers or good luck with any other prediction. How do you break out the NFC?
Yeah, I think you're right, Jody, with regard to the 49ers. The one thing that concerns me about that team, if I'm the 49ers fans, is their quarterback. I know Brock Purdy last year came on, Mr. Irrelevant, played really off the charts for what you would have expected from a rookie that's drafted as the last pick in the draft. Who's going to be their quarterback this year? Is Trey Lance ready? Is it Brock Purdy? Is it Sam Darnold? So as much as I think Kyle Shanahan is a good coach, I think where they lack is going to be at the quarterback position. But jumping over to the Cowboys, and I'm an Eagles fan.
Let me just interrupt you there. What if Purdy just picks up where he left off? Now, he got hurt, and he got hurt against Eagles.
Yep.
And the 49er fans overstated we would have won the game. If you had stopped that, we could have won the game. I think most people would have been okay. But to go as far as we would have won the game, a little obnoxious 49er fans and 49er players too. But he's in camp. He's throwing the ball fine. I've seen comments from his teammates that say they can't even tell that he was hurt last year. If Purdy picks up right from where he left off last year, he might be the second best quarterback in the NFC behind Hurts.
It's possible because I don't think there's a lot of competition to be the second best quarterback in the NFC. I just think that I'm not saying Brock Purdy's not going to be a decent quarterback in this league, but I think what you saw at the end of last season is going to be the exception, not the norm with him. I think he's going to be an average quarterback, potentially an above average quarterback, but the guy was really playing lights out at the end of the year last year. There's going to be more tape on him. You know that. You know how these defensive coordinators probably reviewed things over the offseason to start game planning for him. But their defense is what scares me. It's not going to be their quarterback. It's going to be the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers. But yeah, if Brock Purdy can prove that he is really that guy, that's going to be the team the Eagles need to beat. And I think home field advantage is going to be important. Only one team gets that bye now. So can the Eagles, with this tough schedule, be the number one seed in the NFC? That's going to be a big question mark.
And that home field advantage probably decided in the game between the Eagles and the 49ers during the regular season, which is you're in Philadelphia. So advantage Eagles on that one. But let me ask you about your stance of, there's more tape on Brock Purdy. Everyone's now seen the tape on Brock Purdy. After Jalen Hurts' first year as a first-year full-time starter, he played the handful of games stepping in for Carson Wentz, but we knew that Jalen was going to end up being better than that. The question was how much better. Had the good, solid second year, got him to the playoffs. All right, got beat badly by the Bucs down there in Tampa. Didn't everyone have that much more tape on Jalen Hurts going into last season? And didn't he take it to a level that none of us expected him to be able to get to?
Yeah, I think that's the wonderful thing about Jalen Hurts that we get to see firsthand is you see his work ethic. You see how the guy tries to improve every single week. We don't see Brock Purdy. Now, I know Brock Purdy is working his way back from injury. Is he going to be able to take that leap that Jalen Hurts took from year one to year two? That's a big question mark. No one's going to know that until we see him play this year. But
no way he takes that leap. The question is, can he maintain? Can he be the same quarterback he was last year? If that's the case, he's the second best quarterback in the NFC.
Yeah, and to your point about the 49ers being a threat, they also don't need Brock Purdy to beat Jalen Hurts. That's not how they're going to win games. They're winning games with their defense. They're winning games with Christian McCaffrey from the backfield, short little passes to George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. As long as Brock Purdy doesn't make mistakes, which he really didn't do last year, that gives them a chance to win every single week. So they're definitely a threat. But to the Cowboys, I agree with you that the Dallas Cowboys probably took a step back this year. But one of the things that really concerns me about them, and look, I'm an Eagles fan. I hate the Cowboys more than anybody else. But you look at Dak Prescott. I know he's been a turnover machine over the last couple of years. He had the injury bug last year. But you look at his record against the NFC East in his career, and he's 27-7 against the NFC East. He's 8-3 against the Eagles, 9-2 against the Commanders, and 10-2 against the Giants in his career. So if the Eagles want to win the NFC East again and be the first repeat champ in almost 20 years, they have to figure out a way to beat Dak Prescott, because even when this guy is not playing well, he seems to play well against the Eagles and the rest of the NFC East, and that could be a problem.
Yeah, and he specifically, here's the one thing I'm hoping for this year, and it's not with eagle-colored glasses on, it's just NFL fan glasses on. I want to see Dak Prescott against Jalen Hurts twice. Last year, we got it no times because the Eagles beat the Cowboys without Dak, and the Cowboys beat the Eagles without Jalen Hurts. I just hope they match up twice this year, that both quarterbacks are healthy for both of those two matchups. All right, so, and the other thing about the Cowboys, just want to get this in. You got an opinion on how good a play caller Mike McCarthy's going to be this year for Dallas?
I have zero confidence in Mike McCarthy as a head coach. I mean, any success that he had in the past was because he had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback in Green Bay. And we saw last year in Dallas, he is not a good football coach. And now he's taken over play calling. Not looking forward to that if I'm a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, I'm not as down. John McMullen and I agree on this. Some people just bury Mike McCarthy. I think you got to give him credit for what he did accomplish in Green Bay. It always helps to have Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's a bad head coach, but I just don't think he's a good play caller. So because the Cowboys got bounced in the second round of the playoffs, somebody had to pay a price. Let's run the offensive coordinator out of town and turn it over to a guy who I just don't think was all that great when he was a play caller in Green Bay. So yeah, he'll be under the microscope for that all year, at least for me, and probably from a whole lot of others. But I don't bury him as a head coach. I just don't know how good a play caller he's going to be. So the Cowboys will be the number one agitator in the NFC East, or will they? Do you think either the Commanders or the Giants legitimately made the playoffs last year, went into Minnesota, won a game, came here to Philadelphia, got their tail kicked basically 3 times by the Eagles last year. So I'm not talking head-to-head Giants against the Eagles, but just Giants overall. Or are you a Sam Howell fan? What are you thinking about the other two teams in the division that the Eagles have to face this year?
2 good head coaches on those other teams. And I think Ron Rivera is a great coach. I think Brian Daboll, the Giants, finally got it right after Ben McAdoo and Joe Judge. The Mara family got it right. I think Brian Daboll is a great coach. We saw what he did with Josh Allen in Buffalo. That's a team that is a dark horse for the NFC East. I just don't know how good Daniel Jones is going to be this year. He played well last year, but I have a couple of buddies in New York. They are very high on Daniel Jones. Think that you're going to see him make a big leap this year. I just don't see it. I just don't see him taking that big of a leap. But again, does he have to? Does he have to be as good as Jalen Hurts? Can they win games if Saquon Barkley can stay healthy? But I do have a lot of confidence in Brian Daboll as a coach, so they concern me a little bit. But they're not as good on paper, anywhere near as good on paper with that roster as the Eagles are. And then, like you mentioned with the Commanders, they have a lot of problems at their quarterback position. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, no. Our buddy Ed Kratz, who comes on the show all the time, big Sam Howell fan. I'm not as big a Sam Howell fan as he is, but we'll see. If the Eagles don't go 5-1 in division this year, I'm going to be disappointed. If they come back 4-2, and that's what they were last year, because they lost to the Cowboys, and I think people have tried to annex it from their memories that they got beat by the Commanders here in Philadelphia. The only game that Jalen Hurts started last year that the Eagles lost, other than, of course, the Super Bowl, was that Washington game where they turned the ball over as much as they did. No, they need to be 5-1 in division this year. They got to be able to sweep the Commanders. If they lose one along the way, I could live with it. If it's the Cowboys down and down, I live with it. But I think they really do need to go 5-1 if they want to have that overall home field advantage with the tough overall schedule that they're
what's
playing.
crazy, Jody, is both Cowboys games will be done by week 14. They don't play the Giants for the first time until week 16. So they play the Giants week 16 and week 18. Those games may not even matter by the time you get there. I don't know why the NFL put both of the Giants games so late in the season.
And the funny thing about last year was they played the Giants the last game of the season last year too, and the Giants didn't play. They went to the backup reserve because they knew they were locked into the wild card, couldn't move up, couldn't move down. The Eagles actually did need to win that game, brought Hurts back from the injury list because there was the outside possibility if they lost, the 49ers and the Cowboys could catch them and get home field advantage throughout. So it was really weird. The Eagles had already locked up the division, but or close to locked up the division. They actually needed to play that last game. We'll see how those late games play out this year. All right, need you on the record for what Johnny Mac and I were talking about right before you came on. Eagles in the linebacker position. Nakobe Dean left the field yesterday, went into the injury tent. Seems okay. Doesn't look like it's any major injury, and I kind of expect him back out there on the field, maybe limited today in practice. But John said with Nakobe Dean out of the lineup yesterday, the linebackers just looked a little thin. The Eagles even got a little desperate, throwing certain guys at the outside linebacker position that they don't usually play there. Nolan Smith and Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett getting some linebacker snaps yesterday. The Eagles are thin. Some might say woefully thin at the linebacker position. And if they suffer an injury, it gets real thin real fast. They have basically, with the moves they made this offseason, previous seasons and like, we can read between the lines on how much they valued the linebacker position. Answer, not much, if at all. But they do have to have linebackers out there. They're not going to play super big nickel where they play 5 safeties on the field at the same time. So somebody's got to play linebacker. How do you think the Eagles handle the linebacker position? Will Howie Roseman be looking to make a trade? How do you think the linebacker shakes out between now and opening day?
And I've been doing videos on our social media channel all offseason about this. I am very concerned about the linebacker position, and I've been saying it since they let TJ Edwards walk. I was fine with them letting Kazir White walk. I thought he was an up-and-down player last year. But TJ Edwards, I think a lot of guys underestimated how good he was last year. He played 94% of the snaps, led the team in tackles, was number 7 in the NFL in tackles. He wore the green dot, called the plays last year. So they let both linebackers walk, and we're putting everything. I know Dean got hurt last year, but even when Nakobe Dean is healthy, we're putting a lot on this guy's shoulders. He has only played 34 snaps as a defensive player in the NFL. I know we're all hopeful he's going to go back to what he was at Georgia. I am as well. But if he's not, what do you have other than Dean? They bring in Nicholas Morrow. He was an up-and-down player in Chicago. Obviously, Chicago thought that they were getting an upgrade. They paid TJ Edwards more money and let us take Morrow. So
significantly more money.
Exactly. So, they think Morrow's a downgrade from TJ Edwards. And then who do you have after him? I know a lot of people are high on Christian Ellis. He's another young guy. We've really not seen him play that much defense. He's been a special teamer. You got Sean Bradley, local kid from Mount Holly, New Jersey, special teamer. So like you said yesterday, throwing Nolan Smith back there, Derek Barnett, I don't know what they're going to do. I would love to see them bring a guy in, but like we've seen year after year, Howie Roseman and the Eagles don't value that position. So I don't know who they could even bring in at this point. And I was looking up some people yesterday trying to see, is there anyone that they could pry away? A name that came up, a familiar name, would Jordan Hicks potentially be available from the Minnesota Vikings? I don't know. Is that a guy that they maybe would bring back? He's got familiarity with this city. But Minnesota just restructured his deal, so they may be keeping him. But they are very, very thin at that linebacker position. I know in camp, we've seen a few times they've gone to a 3 safety look, which may help a little bit with that linebacker position. But I'm concerned. I've been concerned. I really would have liked to have seen them bring back TJ Edwards this year, but they don't value the position.
Yeah, they just don't. John and I are both big TJ Edwards fans going into last year, and he had an unbelievable career year and got himself paid, and he got to go home to Chicago. So the Bears put much more of an emphasis on the linebacker. We'll see how that plays out this year. And speaking of the Bears, Yesterday, they signed Yannick Ngakoue, who has been one of the better free agents, still sitting out there well into training camp now. I did come to an agreement on a 1-year, $10 million contract. And the reason why I bring that up is because the Bears are a team that has been mentioned in some media speculation reports as to a possible landing spot for Derek Barnett. The Eagles have tremendous depth right now at the edge pass rusher position.
Yeah.
And Derek Barnett coming back from the injury. The Eagles redid his deal. You just mentioned that the Vikings just redid a deal. Usually when that happens, it's because they want to keep the player. If you think you can trade the player, when you redo a guy's deal, ask him to compromise on some things with you, usually it signifies that you want to keep the player. People had been suggesting offseason that Derek Barnett is a prime trade candidate, that if he can show that he's healthy, he's still worth something. Day 3 pick, chances are, but still worth something on the open market if they were to trade him. Well, the Bears were a team that looked like they could use an upgrade at the edge pass rusher position. They filled that void yesterday by signing Yannick Ngakoue. So Derek Barnett, we haven't had you on the show yet. He's a guy that yours truly has a specific opinion about. Not a big fan. Is he going to be a member of this team this year? And if so, how often is he going to see the field?
Yeah, I mean, they are deep at that edge position, but I think just like we were saying that Howie Roseman and the Eagles don't value the linebacker position, we know how much they value that defensive line, especially their edge rushers. So I think you're going to see Derek Barnett on this team. I don't think that he's going to bring back a lot in return if you tried to trade him. They restructured his deal. You're not paying him a lot. And we know players get injured. Last year, the Eagles were very, very lucky to have all 22 of their opening day starters playing that Super Bowl. But if one of these edge rushers goes down, it'd be nice to have a former first-round pick. I'm still hanging my hat on the fact that he broke Reggie White's record in college.
You got to let that go.
Yeah,
you really have to let that go. It doesn't matter anymore. We are well removed from that. That's why he was drafted when he was drafted. I don't even hold that against him anymore. I just don't think he's got it. That's why I'm not sure why. Other than he's a good team guy and he's a hard worker, he just hasn't performed on the field. I don't even hold the disappointment of where he was picked in the draft against him anymore. I just don't know if he can play.
What's frustrated me most about him is it always seemed like he had a personal foul penalty in the worst times. You know, it seems he's a little bit undisciplined. But I think with the Eagles, they brought back Brandon Graham, who had a great season last year. But how much can you rely on BG this year? He is getting older. You know, I'm hopeful he's going to have another great season. But if, God forbid, one of these guys goes down, I think it would be nice to have some depth at that position. They have Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, Brandon Graham. But I think with what we know about how much the Eagles value this edge position, I think you're going to see Derek Barnett on this team. That's why they restructured him. Who can you get for cheaper than what they're going to pay Derek Barnett? That's the question.
I think they have a couple of guys even further down on their bench. They can do exactly what Derek Barnett can do and more if need be. All right. Do want to get your evaluation on another key position for the Eagles this year. Major changes because they let their 2 starting safeties walk away during the offseason as free agents. Most people pretty darn sure that Reed Blankenship's going to step in and be able to handle one of those 2 starting spots. He's been getting first-team reps all throughout the preseason and was even made available by the media. I judge between the lines as to who the Eagles make available. Christian Ellis, all of a sudden available to the media. Wonder why? Because he's going to play. Reed Blankenship, all of a sudden available to the media. Why? Because he's going to be the starting safety on our field about 100% of the time this year. How do you think the safety position shakes out? Because it seems like it's still up for grabs. That's never a bad thing when it's actually decided by competition. You just hope somebody grabs a job by the throat. Who do you think that's going to be at the safety position for the Eagles?
Yeah, you're 100% right. Reed Blankenship, I think, has the one safety position locked up. He had a promising rookie season last year. Undrafted, comes in. We saw right away what this guy's skill set could be. Very instinctual on that interception by Aaron Rodgers. Broke on the ball, good quickness. So I'm okay with Reed Blankenship, but it's that other position that's a huge question mark. People hear the name Kevon Wallace and fans are getting nervous, but Kevon Wallace is battling for that second starting position, which is crazy to me. I was out on Kevon Wallace. I had Barrett Brooks on my podcast recently, and he said, look out for Kevon Wallace this year. So to his credit, Barrett was real high on Kevon Wallace going into this season, said, I think he's going to win that second safety position. I thought he was crazy. I didn't even think Kevon Wallace would have a chance to win the position, but they're giving him an opportunity. The Eagles did bring in Terrell Edmonds from Pittsburgh, solid player. I don't think you're going to see any flashy plays from him, but I don't know if you'll see a lot of mistakes either. So I was okay with Terrell Edmonds, Reed Blankenship, but Kevon Wallace makes me a little bit nervous. He's had his opportunities. Last year, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson goes down. They don't give it to Kevon Wallace. They give it to the undrafted rookie, Reed Blankenship. So Kevon Wallace, that name makes me a little bit nervous, but hey, he's working hard. Maybe he can prove us all wrong in his 4th year with the Eagles. But the expectations were through the roof when we drafted Wallace because safety from Clemson, everybody automatically assumed Brian Dawkins. Well, you're not going to live up to those expectations.
Did we go through that with Derek Barnett and Reggie White? Hey,
Yeah,
let's double
exactly.
down and do it again and think Kevon Wallace is the next Brian Dawkins. Don't make that mistake, Eagle fans. And you're right. Wallace has practiced very well. John's told us a couple of times that he's opened some eyes at practice, and good on the Eagles that they stayed open-minded. Part of it is out of necessity because the safeties that they brought in were both inexpensive. It wasn't like they dedicated funds to go out and get a proven safety to replace the 2 departed starters. So if Kevon Wallace steps up to the task and earns the job this year, I'll be perfectly fine with that. I'm not discounting that possibility. Some people are. I won't. But I'm not going to say, all right, well, he's great. He looked great in 4 practices. Eagles are going to be great at the safety position. I'm not going to go there either. All right, last question I have for you is about the head coach. New coordinators at both the offensive and defensive sides. That's what happens when you have as good a season as the Eagles have. People want to take your coordinators and make them head coaches, which, by the way, good luck to both of those guys this year. Colts and Cardinals are going to be just flat out bad. But gets to elevate one guy from his staff on the offensive side, brings in a new guy on the defensive side. So they have some holes to fill. The staff was, in my eyes, outstanding last year. But Sirianni has had 2 very successful seasons, playoffs year 1, Super Bowl year 2. I don't know how you can ask him to do much more than that. And he seems to have won over the town as well. What does Nick Sirianni do in year 3? Kind of a tough ask, isn't it, with the success he's had? What are you looking out of the head coach this year of the Eagles?
Yeah, it really is. And you mentioned, though, with success, this is what happens. You lose coaches. But I got this stat, I think, from Reuben Frank a couple of weeks ago. Losing both coordinators after appearing in the Super Bowl has only happened twice since 1994. You had the 94 49ers and the 04 Patriots who were in the Super Bowl who lost both coordinators. So this is not something that happens often. So Nick Sirianni definitely has his work cut out for him. But I do think he's a good coach. I think he's built a great culture there. And the one positive is, at least on the offensive side of the ball, Brian Johnson was here, does have familiarity with Jalen Hurts, played for his dad. So they've known each other for a while. So I think the offense should hopefully not miss a beat. I know Johnson's never called plays in the NFL. We were talking about McCarthy not being a great play caller. We don't know how Brian Johnson's going to be as a play caller. I thought Shane Steichen was a really good play caller. And I know Brian Johnson talked to the media yesterday about how a lot of that is done in the week leading up to the game, which is true. But there's still a feel for the game. I mean, you know, Jody, we've seen it week after week. There is a feel for the game. Doug Peterson was another great play caller back in 2017, where they get a feel for the game and they're able to call the right plays at the right times. Big question mark for Brian Johnson. But you have to hope Sirianni is able to be in his ear. And I was reading a story yesterday about how in the middle of the hallway at the NovaCare complex, Sirianni will turn to Brian Johnson out of nowhere and say, 3rd and 8, 28-yard line, what are you calling? So, you know, he's doing things to try to get Johnson ready. But I just hope that Sirianni has built enough of a culture here that they can survive losing both coordinators and that Super Bowl hangover. I mean, that's a real thing, like we've talked about earlier.
And I thought you made a good point there that flew in the face of what Nick Sirianni did. There's a flow to the game. There's a feel to the game. You just throw somebody 3rd and 8 from the 28-yard line. When do you go? Well, what the hell happened the previous 8 plays? That's what I need to know to tell you what the perfect call is on 3rd and 8 from the 28. Just blindly picking it out without any context is unfair. But that's what Brian is going to be tasked to do this year, because James Steichen was very good. I thought he had a tremendous grasp on the flow of a game and being able to call just the right play. We'll see if Johnson's up to the task. I need to tell you this. You were up to the task today. Thank you very much, Bill, for hopping on here. Give the people all the info on if they want to be able to check out your podcast and follow you on X. How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, Legal Hands to the Face on all your social platforms, all your podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcast. And we're going to start doing a show live every Monday night on the JAKIB Sports Network once the season starts. So check us out, Legal Hands to the Face. Love to engage. Give us a like, give us a follow. And if you're feeling up to it, give us a share.
You got it. Thank you very much. And no, we're going to catch up from time to time here on Birds 365. Thanks for doing it with us today, bud.
I enjoyed it, Jody. You have a good day, man.
My pleasure. That is Brian Colarulo. Now, member of the JAKIB Media broadcasting staff, and we'll get him up as a guest every once in a while. I thought he did a real nice job with me here today. Brian Cameron, managing editor from the Philadelphia Sports Network, has also been on with us before. Looking forward to talking to him again. He'll join us this upcoming hour on Birds 365.